Good morning. It's great to see all of you. I kind of wonder why you would start off with somebody from the government, but we are here to help you, right? I love that line. It just never gets old. So first, I'd just like to say congratulations. Congratulations to this group of leaders. The Michigan credit unions, the state chartered better credit unions had another fantastic year. The financials grow stronger, the credit unions grow stronger, and it's due to your leadership. And also just thank you for everything you do for the membership. You really make a difference in people's lives. And you probably don't always notice it, but you do, because you have that random person that stops you on the street and says, thank you. When X happened, you helped me and nobody else would. So you really do impact lives and probably generations for that matter. And for all you do in the community. Just heard about some of the fundraising. It's fantastic. It's another way that credit unions are special and make a difference in the world. So congratulations for all the great things that you've done and will continue to do. I have a little bit of a theme to the talk this morning, so I'm often asked kind of two sets of questions, and I was stopped actually the very first thing I got here yesterday, and it was, so what's it like to be in government, and what's it like to be part of DIFS, and what surprised you about it? And I'm very pleased and proud to tell you that what surprised me the most was the level of employees in the credit union division, but really all the divisions. And I keep pointing over here, and I should explain. Andrew, John, Leanne, would you stand up? These are the people who actually do all the work. I'm just a pretty face. See, you got applause if I did it that way. But just amazed because of the knowledge, the experience, and although from a different perspective, the same care for your credit unions that you have and for the members. They truly want to partner with you and help your credit union be successful. And I'm just so pleased and proud to be able to work with them. And their good, positive working relationship with almost all of you. I was having breakfast with a couple of old friends who I won't mention, and both of them complimented their lead examiner and were pleased with the way the exams have gone and said that they've been a little bit warmer and fuzzier. And that was because of some feedback that you all gave John and I, and they talked to the examiners and asked them to try a little bit different approach. And so your feedback makes a difference, and we want your feedback. And if it's adverse and you're very upset, please call John any time of the day or night. You're welcome, John. But really, it is a spirit of cooperation. However, I have to tell you, there's a flip side to it. The thing that recently has shocked me the most was the leaders, CEOs, and some board members of some credit unions, and the lack of respect, the lack of cooperation that they show their examiner when the examiner comes in. Down to basic things, reluctant to give information, reluctant to even share what their plans are for the future or how they're going to fix any of the issues at the credit union, and just abusive behavior. I can't picture doing that, and the people I used to work with at MSU, oh, there they are, would tell you that I wasn't always the easiest on the federal examiners, but they were feds, so it's okay. But this was just really nasty, and it sort of got all the way to me, and this one CEO was like, I'm not doing it, and you can't make me do it, and I don't like you, and you have to do these things to make it go away. And I looked at John, and I said, yeah, I don't think so, you know. I hint to all of you, being nasty to the examiner really doesn't help the situation, right? You get to see ugly Pat, which is what they used to call me at the credit union. But anyway, the spirit of cooperation is really good, and I want to thank all of you for that. The other thing that was shocking to me was the CU failures that we've experienced in the last 2 years, which John will tell you coincided with me becoming the director. But the unfortunate thing is there really have been due to dishonesty. Dishonesty by, I see heads nodding yes, dishonesty by the CEO or a senior executive. And that's beyond my comprehension, and I know the comprehension of all of you who care so much about your responsibilities and duties. But the second part that really concerned me was the lack of governance at the credit unions. The lack of the board being involved, the board leading the credit union. I would have never dreamed it would be the way it is at some credit unions. So my simple message, which you all know, and I apologize to even say this to most of you know, boards, you work for the membership. You don't work for the CEO. You don't own the credit union. The members own the credit union. And you have a role and responsibility. And because I'm continually naive, I told John, well, we'll just have him come in and I'll talk to him. I can talk to him, because I can talk, you know. And talk to a board of directors, and at the end they're basically, well, yeah, we know he's doing some things, but you know, he's our friend and we can't really discipline him or tell him to stop doing this stuff, let alone our implicit recommendation was to fire him. That's not the way it works. The board has a responsibility beyond being their friend, right? And the other thing in these credit unions that failed, that shocked me, I guess, is just being unaware of what's going on. The board has no clue what's going on. Nobody's paying attention to the individual. So the story goes something like this, and it's kind of a couple credit unions together to hide the identity of the guilty. But so you have an employee, makes 50, 60 grand a year, lives in $1 million house, drives brand new cars, travels the world, makes major donations on 50 grand. Raise your hand if you can do that on 50 grand. Nobody asked questions. The comment, both here and interesting in some of the other industries, like he's got family money, so it's not from his pay. So if you had immense wealth from your family, would you work for 50 grand for your credit union? Show of hands. My point is, you got to pay attention, and you got to pay attention to what's going on, and you got to act on your suspicions. So, sorry to belabor this, but it really is troubling, because Ken Ross and John and I have had some conversations about this, and it's, okay, we see the problem, we see the governance problem, we see the board's reluctance to fulfill their role, but how the heck do we do it? It's probably not DIF's role, right? And the league offers plenty of presentations to educate boards, but unfortunately the ones that need this probably don't attend, right? Or don't acknowledge that it's them. So it's a governance issue, and it's a struggle, and we have to figure out how to fix it, because it's not going to go away. And this is not true just of the credit unions that have failed due to fraud. It's also some of the credit unions that have operational issues, because the board isn't engaged enough. And yes, I will admit, when I was CEO, what I really wanted more than anything else was the board, whenever I said something, say, Pat, that's brilliant, we should do it. Unfortunately, they rarely did that, but so anyway. Then the last thing I've been surprised at, because John does it and I've done it since I've had the job, is please talk to us. You got a question, you have a problem, and as I mentioned earlier, some feedback about the attitude that the examiner should come in with and have a more positive relationship from the beginning. They implemented it, and many years have said that you can see a change. But we want to hear from you. We don't know what's wrong unless you talk to us. And I have to tell you that I'm disappointed at the very few people who've called and said, I want to talk to you. So I'll make the offer again. We'll meet you at DIFS, we'll meet you at your credit union, we'll meet you halfway, we'll meet you wherever you want, and it doesn't have to be an earth-shattering situation. We want to do the right thing, we want to help you, and so you need to help us. So please don't hesitate to call John any time of the night to complain. And the good news is, I guess maybe next week or the following week, we are going to have a CEO meet with us and give us some feedback. But we do want to hear from you. The second sort of set of things that I want to talk about is many has asked me, so what keeps you up at night? What do you worry about with the credit unions? And again, I'll mention first governance, because I would have not mentioned that a year ago or 2 years ago. So that is one of the issues. And it's more than just the board governance. It's really your credit union having a culture of quality operations, controls, responsibility. It's more about the culture of the organization. It is not about good written policies, because some of these credit unions had fabulous written policies, of which nobody even knew where they were, but they were really good policies, and you could give them to the examiners when they came in, right? You got to have good policies, but more importantly, you have to run the organization that way. So that's the first thing. The second thing is financial risk. I said you're all doing great, right? Say right. Are you doing great? Is the economy ever going to change? No. Okay, there's one person I have to talk to, but I didn't identify. Was that Pete? Oh, okay. I tease a lot, but the economy is going to change, and I'm not here to predict how it's going to change or exactly when it's changed. But I know that this period of low interest rates, slow growth, small margins, more compliance costs because of federal regulation has made it more and more difficult to run your credit union. So it is a tip of the cap to the CEOs and the board members and the audience, because it's not easy. My concern is there's some of you in this audience who are taking on more risk to get that incremental amount of income. And the question is, do you understand the risk that you're taking? And the second is, do you have the financial strength when the economy does change? Because it is going to change. Those people, and I still say it was Pete who said the economy is not going to change, that it's the new normal. It's not the new normal. When enough economists tell you that it's not going to change, it's going to start changing. It's happened every time. That's going to be my next job, is I'm going to be an economist, because you never have to be right. So the concern is, what kind of risk are you taking on for the incremental income? You have a lot of liquidity. You want to do a lot of loans. How are you going to get the loans out? There's easy ways to get the loans out, right? It's easy to make loans. It's kind of important if you get them back at the end of the day. The classic things that we see and talk about in the meetings about credit unions are indirect loans. I'm for indirect lending, done well. If you've never done it before, you really need to study it. You really need to put your toe in the water, and you need to be careful. You got to understand the risk, because there's incremental risk with indirect loans. The other place where some credit unions are searching for yield is subprime, because you can charge more on a subprime loan, right? And that's because there's a lot more risk, right? You know, anybody who comes in and sells you a program and says you can do this and there's no increase in risk and you're going to make a lot more money, throw them out, okay? Because it doesn't work that way unless they're going to guarantee your losses. And to really make it good, if you want to do indirect lending and do it subprime indirect lending, then you really can double and triple your risk. And there's at least a handful of people here in the room who are doing this. This is going to bite you. There's only a handful of credit unions in the state who have done this successfully over a long period of time. It's just very risky. I hope those of you who are new in it will be that person, but I'm not sure it is. Kind of in passing, investments, you decide to extend all your investments for 10 years because that way you can get some yield. Everybody says we don't bet on interest rates. If you're doing all your investments for 10 years, you're betting interest rates are going to be stable for 10 years. How many of you think that's going to be true? Well, I get no cooperation from the audience. And then the other area is business lending. And again, I'm for business lending. I'm for credit unions taking risk. Just understand what you're doing. The one individual I was having breakfast with this morning said there's some credit unions in that person's area that are doing some loans that she just doesn't understand. And, you know, they are risky. And when the economy changes, the businesses change. And you know, there's some great lies in lending, whether it be banks or credit unions. And it's, well, we can do the business loan, we'll just make it mature in 3 years or balloon in 5 years, and then we get out. If the business is really bad, nobody else is going to lend them. You have a partner for life, okay? You don't just get in and out of them, so don't listen to people who tell you that. In general, Warren Buffett has this saying, you find out who is swimming naked when the tide goes out, right? And I've known some of you for 20 and 30 and more years, and I definitely don't want to see you naked, okay? But the tide going out in his mind is the economy changing. And when the economy changes, all the distortions that have been in the marketplace for the last 7 years, is it now, 10 years, are going to start unwinding. And nobody knows exactly how. But homes may change in value. We could see another decrease like before. Definitely business values could change, right? Depending on the kind of car. For those of you old enough, when gasoline went up, you could buy a van for like 20 cents on a dollar, right? So sooner or later it's going to change. Just understand the risk you're taking, understand what's going on. Right here in Michigan, you have to kind of think about it. We are now in the longest period, at least that I know of in the 40 years I've been around, that we've had just constant year-over-year increase in car sales, vehicle sales. Actually, it's a lot of small trucks now. Historically, every 3 to 5 years, we don't necessarily have a recession in Michigan, but we at least have an economic slowdown, right? For your old people here, that's why Michigan credit unions have done well compared to the rest of the country, because we were a little more conservative, because we knew there was a recession 3 years ago, we're due one. You know, things are going real well, you don't go crazy because something's going to happen. Well, we're at the point in car sales that I predicted it last year, and it's just starting to happen, that they are going to decrease. You can see that happening by the announcements by several of the big three, especially. And evidence of that is in December 31 of 16, the annual rate of vehicle sales was 18.7 million. And as of the end of May, that had decreased to just under 17. That's significant. And you're seeing the things that happen in the car production, car sales that occur each time. Have any of you seen the cool ads where you can get $10,000 cash back if you buy a van or a pickup, a big pickup? They're discounting them because they can't move the metal, right? And it's all part of this cycle. The other thing that happens is more risk taking, especially by the captives of the big three. So they take more credit risks, they lend 130, 40, 50% of the value of the car. So when you take it back, you know, I know you're a lot better in math than me, but it doesn't work out real well when you repo a car under those conditions. And the length of the loans gets longer and longer, credit scores lower. And the thing that happens every time in this cycle is and I've done this in my past, take on more risk because you're trying to compete in the marketplace and you're trying to compete for loans. And again, competition's great, taking risk is great. I just warn you that sooner or later this is going to happen. Aren't I cheering you up this morning? But really what I'm trying to say more than anything else is the market's going to turn, the economy's going to turn, the auto industry is coming up on a change of cycle. Just be ready, be prepared, think about the kind of actions you're going to take at your credit union, and be ready for the changes. Continue the fantastic success you've had. It's been absolutely great. And it's been great to be able to be here and spend just a little bit of time with you. He did have me concerned, or she had me concerned when I thought I was going to get questions. But I'll take your questions tomorrow. back at the office. No, not tomorrow. Today's Friday, isn't it? So that really concludes what I wanted to say this morning. And then next I have a unique pleasure of introducing the leader of the Michigan Credit Union League. And when Drew was speaking and then Pete, you were speaking, I was reminded of the kind of decisions that him and his board has made over the number of years that he's been CEO that has made the Michigan Credit Union League financially, more than financially sound, I guess financially successful, which has enabled them to provide you more services at less cost. And that's a fantastic thing. And I would urge you to greet him warmly and thank him for that. My pleasure to introduce Dave Adams.